Hello, YouTubers. It's Girly Vines here, and I'm practicing my showmanship stage presence voice. So you are impressed with my aura and presence, and I get those likes and those views and all that stuff that we all want when we post on YouTube, or any social media for that matter. Um, so this was a philosophy video. It's not a tarot, as you will see by the title. And it is about evil, the concept of evil, which is totally a man-made concept. Good and bad, justice, all of these things pertaining to morality are man-made concepts. Um, to the world, to the universe in space and the physical reality, there is no morality. It's just nature. Nature is just doing nature. And nature is doing what it is compelled to do as facilitated by cause and effect and the rules of the natural world. If you see me looking down, it's because I have written a little essay regarding evil, and it's called On Evil and Opportunity. I thought about naming this video Evil is as Simple as Farting, but we'll get to that later. So evil, as defined by many people, now I think so. I tried to come up with a common definition of evil when I wrote this, and I chose the word evil instead of bad as opposed to good, because evil is like, it seems to be the more extreme version of bad. It is like bad squared or something. It is like if somebody's doing evil, then they're doing something absolutely heinous, and it's not just like a bad performance of something. It is like that person has like some religious concept of like a demon or something in them, and they're just especially villainous, because they do stuff that just seems inhumane. It seems unhuman-like. They are separate from the human species because they are evil. They are other. They are worse, subhuman, right? Cretinous. But I mean, if you look at humans, any of our civility comes from civilization and knowing that living in harmony with our fellow humans is actually best for us. And it's really just a selfish endeavor in the very end. And if you are a realistic, probably atheist, very scientific-minded person, you see humans as being basically animals. They're just a different type of animal, but they have consciousness. And animals have a level of consciousness too, but we're just very intelligent. We were able to develop a language. We have a sense of logic. So we're just very intelligent animals, but we operate on a lot of the same operandi as animals. We are trying to survive by any means necessary. We want to eat. We want to have sex. A lot of us want to procreate. Some of us don't. They just want to have the sex. We need to sleep. We need comfort. We need safety. We need all these things. And unlike animals, we have the language and the extra thinky bits to where we can strategize how we're going to win the fight against our fellow humans and or ally ourselves with other humans in order to get what we need. So, in summary, we are basically like animals, but we are a little more refined. We're a lot more refined, actually, if you just see what we've been able to produce. And animals that can't produce much. at all, except like nests and making crude little homes for themselves or whatever, and then parenting their children who are most likely going to die out in the wilderness because the wilderness is wild and uncivilized. But aside from that, we are like them in the sense that we are compelled to do what we have to do to survive, and sometimes that means fucking other people over. Oftentimes, it means fucking other people over. Whether that is an active or a passive form of aggression or sabotage. Um, there are times where you can help somebody and you don't do it because it's not advantageous to do so. From an evolutionary standpoint, to align yourselves with certain people, hell, from a Twitter standpoint, it's not advantageous to align yourself with people with fewer than 1,000 followers or whatever. You want to align yourself with the up and up. So, but we come up humans, and animals don't have this concept because they don't have any concept except basic survival. But with our language that is one of the tools in our toolbox, we have come up with the concept of evil, which is a very religious term. I don't think scientists tend to use evil as a variable whenever they're measuring things or coming to conclusions about phenomena in the physical world. But that is a thing that a lot of people use to describe bad things that happen, and especially if things happen to them that are really heinous, they become emotional and then they use the word evil. So I'm using this word evil because it is on the extreme end of bad, and it's such an emotionally charged, subjective word that even the most objective and scientifically minded of us use whenever we feel very strongly that something is wrong or bad. So, to get to brass tacks, we're all capable of evil in the sense that evil is defined as doing harm to another person for one's own gain. Now, if you look at the most heinous acts of evil, one thing that is commonly referenced is the Holocaust, the Hitler. That is totally evil. I would agree. If you were to write down, I would even say that that's a universal evil. 6 million people tortured, killed, simply because of some racial idea of racial purity. Totally evil. Huge, tons of suffering. Absolutely unnecessary, to say the least, and should be condemned from now until eternity. It should always be something that should be frowned upon. But it fits in the definition that I have come up with for evil, and I think most people would agree is the definition for evil is that Hitler harmed all those people for his own ideas of what was right to him, right? So he did it for his own gain. Now, if we apply that same definition, if that's the definition of evil in that scenario, then that definition of evil should apply across the board. Now, there are different levels of evil, so not all evil should be treated the same. There are big evils, and then there are small evils. So a smaller evil, a way smaller evil, right, is somebody stealing something from a store, from somebody else. They have left that store at a deficit, and they have kept the item the property that they have taken for their own gain. That is also would be considered an evil. Now, from the universe's standpoint, it's just cold mathematics, and it's just one being doing the selfish thing that selfish creatures do to other, to other selfish creatures. I mean, it's just, that's kind of what we do. But from the standpoint of evil, that is an evil thing from that definition. It is a much lesser evil, right? Now, if you go even further down the spectrum, there is the biological processes that you can't even really help, like farting, like releasing gas into the atmosphere for the relief of your bowels. And whether it's around a person, to which point it may or may not be offensive, depending on your diet, or it's not around other people. There's some scientific evidence. I mean, definitely with cows and cattle, that the expulsion of flatulence into the air actually is bad for the environment. So this natural process of expelling this gas from one's bowels is a harm to the environment. And if it's a harm to the environment, inevitably it's going to be a harm to the people, the creatures around it that live in the world. So if a fart, which can't be helped, fits into the definition of evil, then on the very far end of the spectrum, there is a level of helplessness with the Hitler. Now, one is this is where it gets dangerous, right? I'm not saying that farting is the same as the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a huge, huge evil, right? What I'm saying is that the process, in some ways, from a deterministic standpoint, and when I mean determinism, I mean there was no free will, that there's a mechanical process, that what humans do is a product of their biological processes adapting to their environment. Now, humans are very complex, so they're able to create civilizations. They're capable of destroying civilizations. And so what I'm saying is that evil has different levels, from very small evils to very big evils, from the farts all the way down to the Holocaust. But what separates that is the complexity of the evil. And the complexity of the evil is what is uniquely human, right? The Holocaust was an extra diabolical evil because it involved so many people, 6 million people, 6 million lives that had so much potential to relieve suffering and to do good in the world and to not take from other people. Although inevitably those lives would have done their own harms and would have committed their own evils, according to this theory. But I'm not excusing anything. But what I'm saying is that evil, according to a common definition, is inevitable and also natural. And there are big ones and there are small ones. And they're committed all the time, sometimes knowingly and sometimes unknowingly. And I think that there are several ways to interpret this. Before I go that far, I would like to say that a big ingredient to the more complex evils, the more complex evils by humans being carried out, is that there's an opportunity for that evil to take place, which is why we have law and order in our society as deterrents. Because if if you don't have that, well, one, if say you don't want people smoking weed, right? Which I don't think that's an evil, but there are people that think that's an evil. They think that it takes away from people's lives, and it's just money to people that aren't paying taxes or whatever. That's complex. Again, evil is subjective, right? But I'm trying to make it objective with this definition. You know, it is important to realize that evil is a matter of opportunity as well, and that a lot of people, if given the circumstances, given the right circumstances and the right opportunities, would probably commit greater evils than they do. And you see this all the time. I know that there was I think it was the Stanford prison experiment where they got some random volunteers and they had some people as the prisoners and some as the guards. And then once put in that situation, the guards immediately started power tripping over the prisoners, and then the prisoners started acting like prisoners and being bad. And it was because they were in the opportunity. They were given the roles and the freedom to do bad things. And then there's also been the social experiments where if you're in an anonymous situation and you can cause harm to somebody, and as long as you're not held accountable for it, you probably will cause harm to that person. You see that with social media all the time. People just throwing these little jabs and digs to each other because, what are you going to do? You're all the way over there, on the other side of the country or wherever you're at, and you're not going to jump to the computer and hold me accountable for what I'm saying. So people do all sorts of evil things because they have the golden opportunity to do those things. So that's why we have law and order, to provide these deterrents and reduce the opportunity for people to do evil or harm to one another. So that is more or less what this video is about. And in summary, I had to look at my notes to double check, make sure I'm hitting all the points. In conclusion, I think that it's important to have this understanding of evil or bad or harm and how opportunity plays a role in it. So you have a clear understanding of how the game works. And what I'm trying to find it. I wrote this down. So I said, these are the last few sentences. I'm just going to, let's go back, okay? What I'm going to say is, therefore evil, both great and small, is an unavoidable biological process, like farting, like the bad ideas that comes to one's brain whenever they grow up in a bad environment, or they have some kind of faulty amygdala, or they have some faulty process in their mind to where they can't empathize with other people. And then you mix that, they already kind of have a psychopathic mindset, and then you mix that with a bad environment. And then they're going to their natural biological processes are going to come to these really evil conclusions. And they're going to do evil things. So, in that sense, evil is an unavoidable biological process, like farting, right? Like burping, like doing nasty things with your body, right? And awareness of this unavoidability can lend itself to an advantageous adaptability in the game of life. So one can derive more rewards from it. Now, I think a big thing that I left out is that a big thing that drives people to do what they do is risk and reward. So, sociopaths and psychopaths have their concept of risk is not as strict as somebody who is considered more adaptive to society, a more civilized and caring individual. Um, People that are really cautious also tend to be probably more courteous to other people, because if you're following this idea, well, I want to be nice to those people because I would want people to be nice to me. So being that's a level of caution. Now, if you're a narcissist or a psychopath, you don't care about that, because you don't care about how, you think that you're strong enough or you're better than that person. So you will just steamroll over anybody, right? So so the idea of the reward of steamrolling over somebody or using and abusing another person outweighs any kind of risk of them potentially doing something to you. As a matter of fact, that wouldn't even cross their mind. So, and that also plays into the to the opportunities of doing evil. A lot of people don't cheat because they don't think they're probably not given the opportunity to do so. And if they are, then the risk would not outweigh the fleeting reward of doing that. And I'm just talking about cheating at anything, not just relationships, but just cheating at life. Whether it's participating in crime, stealing. Is stealing a Snickers bar from the store really worth going to jail for being a thief? No, it's not. Now, but if you have a faulty reasoning and your faulty risk assessing faculty in your head, then you're not going to care. You're going to be impulsive, and you're going to have the compulsion to steal and do that risky behavior. And that is a product of that person's biology. And another way of this being an advantageous way of looking at things is that we should look at people as biological beings instead of moral beings, and see what the actual factors are that play into people doing bad things. And we should study those factors. I mean, people are already doing this. This is nothing new. But I still think people act like people are actually wanting to choose, like, there's the good thing and then there's the bad thing. Oh, he knew that was bad and he still chose that bad thing. Well, you want to make those bad things not look so tempting, right? And not only do you not want to make those things not look so tempting, but you need to find a way to make it to where they have other options too. Because it's also a matter of having options. Some people do bad things out of desperation because they have no other way of getting whatever that need is that they have fulfilled. I mean, whether it's a need for excitement or a need for love or a need for whatever, people find ways. That's what the human brain does, is it tries to solve problems. And not everybody has the same mind and looks at problems the same way. Some people see, oh, I'm broke. I need to solve this problem by robbing somebody. I'm not saying that that's right, but from the cold perspective of the universe, there is no right or wrong. It's just animals being animals. So I think that we should we should pan out and take a universal perspective of right and wrong whenever we write the rules of morality for our civilized human society, and realize that evil is both extremely heinous and can be as simple as a fart. And that is my 2 cents on that. Gurley Vine signing out.